coordinator of the Women's Resource Center at Lone Star College, North Harris. We're the only 2 women's centers in the system, so we've decided we're going to band together and maybe do more things together, especially since we're virtual. So why not? We might as well all be here together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Brittney, I mentioned earlier that this year's the 100th anniversary of women in America getting the right to vote, but that didn't mean that everybody did. So do you want to share with us some of the history, I guess, of where all of this, the history that we've come from?
There's a long list of history. I know it started, voting started in 1776, but it was only for white men who owned property. So we weren't allowed to vote then. And then in 1848, the women's suffrage movement happened. And that's where we first meet Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who started a women's suffrage movement, to give more women more rights for themselves and to vote. And so they started that group. And then 1856, this is a lot of history, sorry, or if you're a lot of history buffs, it's like, you'll love it. But honestly, I think the first time women voted or attempted to vote was 1872. And you had your activists like Susan B. Anthony and Sojourner Truth, which was a Black woman, were jailed for trying to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't really see women the right to vote until 1890, and that was also for white women. So not all women were allowed to vote. It wasn't until 1965 when all people of all colors were allowed to vote. And that's kind of sad because I'm gonna probably show my age a little bit, but my mom was born in 1965, and so
yeah,
it hasn't been that long where women were seen as not property,
mm-hmm.
but an individual, not attached to a man or a husband, or, like I said, deemed as property. And I just feel like that is crazy that it's only been 56 years since we've all had the right to vote.
Yeah, it's right. That's in, some of our students were potentially alive then and wouldn't have had, they probably weren't 18, but maybe, I don't know. We got all kinds of people, but yeah, it's it feels like history, which it is, it's in the past, but not that long ago.
It hasn't been. I think the Super Bowl might be is the same age as women being able to vote. So it's to me, that's kind of sad. And I feel like it's very telling that some women still don't have, in some states, women don't have the right to be in control of their own bodies. You still
mm-hmm.
have older men telling you what you can and cannot do with your body. And I find that to be insane.
Yeah.
That it's my body, it's my person, but I am not in control of it. You are.
Right.
Places like Planned Parenthood and stuff, it's are shutting down because men deem it as not useful or something that they don't support.
Right. When that's where a lot of women just get basic health care, outside of family planning and all of that stuff. Just we have, our bodies are different than men's and they require different kinds of health care, and Planned Parenthood and places like that help us with that.
I just feel like it's insane for someone else to tell me what to do with my body. It's mine. It's not yours. This is what I was born with. This is not something we were born with. We don't share it. So
mm-hmm.
How are you going to tell me what I can and can't do with it? And a lot of times it's not for abortions or anything. It's for women who may not have access to healthcare to get the proper things that they need for their bodies. It's just, to me, I don't know, it's crazy. And that's why I feel like it is very necessary to vote, because these are men who are in power because of others who voted them in that position.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel like it's definitely necessary to know who you're voting for and to really be purposeful with your vote. I know a
Right.
lot of times we just go along with our family, like, oh, you know, my family has been Republican for 115 years, so I'm not going to change tradition. It's like, no, I feel like at this point, we need to understand what's going on in the world and have a voice and flex it. Because this is where we are right now. And I feel like for it to be 2020 and we're still having same laws that were in effect when our grandmas and great grandmas were around is just, that's crazy.
Right.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So I
And
feel
I think
like
you bring up a good point that, like, you know, with voting, it's, and I mentioned this right before you got on, that yes, there's a big presidential one going on, but there all the local ones that decide who's in Congress, who's in Senate, who's in your city council. I mean, we're seeing, like, especially this year with coronavirus, like, we see how local government impacts we've seen it very clearly how local governments can impact your day-to-day life, and that paying attention to those votes are just as important, if not more so, than the president, because they're going to impact everything leading up to that point.
I definitely feel like legislative is like your foundation.
Mm-hmm.
That is the foundation that you're laying into your future.
Mm-hmm.
So by you not vote, well, I know a lot of people say like, my vote doesn't count, it doesn't matter, whatever, yeah, blah, blah. Yes, it does. It absolutely does, because the people that you're putting in these positions are telling you what to, like, basically laying out how you can and cannot live your life in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So by it's like not doing anything at all, that's saying, I don't want control over my life. I want you to control what I do. I don't care. Just do whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's very dangerous, especially in like the times we're in now, especially like you said, like how people handle coronavirus, or kids going back to school or not going back to school, or the road laws, anything like that. It's just, these things are what's most important. I'm like, yes, the presidential is important, but however, comma, it is very necessary for you to know like what is going on in your legislature, because these are the true laws that affect you
Mm-hmm.
in your day-to-day.
Right. So Myrna, the other employee in our Women's Center, did some research on like some of the bills that are like currently waiting in like Congress or in the Senate. I think they're all, well, I don't know where they all are, somewhere in there waiting, and looked at ones that impact women. And the majority of them were things like honoring some woman who did something and is probably like dead by now, which is good. That's a nice thing to do. But it was harder to find things that impacted, first of all, American women and today. So some of the things that we saw, there were a few that talked about like supporting women and children in Central American countries who are facing who need protection from like female homicides, domestic violence, and sexual assault, which, like, good, like women and children need help everywhere. But those are issues that also women here are dealing with, and there aren't specific. I mean, there's a few laws that like kind of protect women from violence, but not exactly. So I thought that was interesting that like we're thinking about other people, kind of, although that hasn't been passed yet. Another one that was interesting. So I don't remember what, it was like a while ago. Do you remember when the women's national soccer team won the World Cup and the men's team was not, they haven't been doing well for a long time. And then the women, like, for years have been in this legal battle saying, we don't get paid nearly as much as the men do. And we're like producing just as good, if not better, results. This doesn't make sense. And they keep being told, no, no, no. So there's currently, I think this is exciting. There's a bill that, the opposite is exciting. This bill would prohibit using government money to pay that equitable pay to the women if they, like in the next World Cup, which would be 2026. So I guess it's good that this bill hasn't passed, because these people are trying to say that they don't need that same sort of money. But something that the government is thinking about, because the national, I don't even know I guess the American National Soccer Association, whatever they're called, they're not trying to give those women the same amount of money. So, and then there's of course a bill about reproductive rights. So that's probably going to sit for a while. Those things tend to not move very quickly through our government system. So there's things that women are like being highlighted in, and people are seeming to notice. And maybe that's because we now have more women in government. We're still way less than men. But like we saw in Houston, especially in the last few years, we've had a lot more women, and in particular, women of color and Black women who've come into positions. Judges, I mean, we have Lena Hidalgo. So we're making progress, and maybe, I mean, I definitely think that having more women in these positions is going to mean that women are paid more attention to when legislation is coming through, when bills are being made. It's like you're saying, if there's a room full of men deciding what we're supposed to do with our bodies, it's like, well, do you even know like what our bodies do? You don't have one. Do you know all the different things that it plays a part, that play a part in it?
There are multiple things that I feel that as women, we don't get the same recognition, respect, and acknowledgement as men do. And that's one, starting with, like I said, to me, it all starts with respect. You have to respect me in order to understand me, and then in turn, listen to what I have to say. And with that, take what I'm saying and do something about it. I mean, I do feel like a lot of times we are seen as something to look at and not speak. So I feel like we still have a ways to go with that, especially when it comes to something as simple as paying me what I'm worth. You have more women and girls in college than men. However, men are getting paid more, and they're seen to have more of a voice and more respect when it comes to boardrooms and business dealings. And I really feel like that is something that needs to change. I feel like men put women in positions to be like, oh, see, we care about women. Like, she's right there, see, but like, don't say anything. And that also needs to change. I also feel as though, like I said, like, pay me what I'm worth. Why should I make 70 cents when you're making $1? What makes you better to pay you the extra 30 cents other than a chromosome? And I feel like that is also just gravely gross and just irresponsible. And then, like, given what's going on in the world now, women are more likely to stand up and protest than men are. Women are more likely to get in the fight for what is right and justice than men are. And then I also feel like, in turn, on the flip side of that, women utilize themselves to get what they want sometimes. You know, like, sometimes, like, if you have a speeding ticket, you're like, oh, I didn't know I was speeding. I'm so sorry. Then I was like, all right, you can go. So it's like, there's two heads of the coin with that. But I do feel like, as a woman, just because I am a woman does not mean that I am less important than a man. And I also feel like women do not get, they're like, I don't want to say flowers, but for lack of better words, they're flowers. We birth children and you give us 3 months to go back to work.
It's
right. And in other countries, they get, like Canada, they get a year. I don't know. I just feel like there are so many things that are just wrong and need to be right. And like, it's been 27 years since it's been illegal for a man to abuse his wife, because if before you can abuse your wife, but it was your property, so you can get away with it. 27 years?
I'm older than that. I was born when that happened. I was already alive when that changed.
I just like 27 years is just, that's eye-opening.
So not to get too political, but so the last week was the Democratic National Convention. This week is Republican National Convention. And I think it was yesterday, some woman, I don't remember who it was, said that she was on board for going back to the idea of one vote per household, meaning that I mean, essentially it means that men would get to decide the vote and that we wouldn't. And this is one person. I don't think that there's like a whole movement for this to happen. I'm not particularly concerned about it. But like, it shows that, you know, women are still in very different places about what like freedom and equality means to them. And even though we've had the right to vote individually, technically for 100 years, at least they've had the idea that in general women should, I guess, have their own opinion. Eventually they said, okay, you women can have it too, you women can have it too. But that there are still people who are like, no, not necessary. Women don't need to do that. Men can take care of it. And that just blew my mind. Like I said, I'm not like, it's not a whole movement. I think we're going to be okay. But the idea of what equality means, I think is still very different to not only men and women, but even women within our sex.
So what do you think about those women who just go along with what their husband or their spouse says because they have grown up in a traditional household where what a man says goes, and I'm not to question what he says?
I struggle with it to know how to respond, I think, because like I grew up in a household where that was not the case. Like my parents, they were a team. They both had their different things that they did to support the household. Like they both had their own opinions. They both voted individually. And like my mother wasn't told what to do, or like they made decisions together. Like, you know, she listened to him in the same way that he listened to her. So I grew up in a household where that was normal. So to hear the idea that like I need to change who I am if I marry a man is like, my initial reaction is very much like, no, never. But then I know that it's important to listen to everyone's opinions and where that comes from. Mm-hmm. But it's really hard for me to feel like women should be okay with not expressing themselves and to make a man happy. I have a really hard time with that idea. And I think that means women are carrying unnecessary burdens sometimes. I think it means, like in the case of voting, it means that the population is not being accurately represented. And so the way things are run, the way that bills are designed is not accurate and not going to represent everybody in a way that's actually beneficial. But I don't think it's helpful for me to like burst in and tell someone who feels differently than me that like, wrong, you're supposed to be independent. Because if they haven't been raised that way, then the idea of not having someone to kind of guide them and make decisions for them is also, I would imagine, very difficult. So it's tough because I don't want to lecture people, but also it feels like I think we're missing out if women don't have the ability to express themselves and make their own decisions. It sounds like a very PC way.
I know for me, and I'm trying to just remain as politically correct as possible. Growing up, like I've always seen my mom get up, go to work, take care of me and my siblings, and basically like struggle because we're in a military family. So my dad was deployed a lot, but I always saw her do it on her own and sacrifice things for herself. And that was mm-hmm. like something that I always thought in my mind was like, I don't want that to be me. Mm-hmm. I want to show my children that you can be strong. You have a voice. You are powerful no matter what someone else says. Like mm-hmm. every day I tell my child, like, you are important. And I never. So I don't know. I just feel like it's very important to, I guess, like, let your voice be heard. Like there has been, like, mm-hmm. my grandparents didn't have a voice. There are people out here right now who may be like disabled or maybe a previous felon or just in a situation where they're not allowed mm-hmm. to have a voice. And yeah. I want to be someone to speak up for them and say, like, I'm very much so like an advocate. If you looked anything at like the WRC page, like I am an advocate for all things like equal, just, and fair.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I can be a voice and use my voice when my grandparents didn't have that luxury or that right, then I'm going to use it by any means necessary. You're going to see me for all the whatever it is. Oh, we going to vote on something? We going to vote on like the sidewalk? I'm there. We're going to vote on like what the parking lot looks like? I'm there. Because no one can ever come back and say, well, you didn't say anything, so you shouldn't speak.
Right.
I'm like, oh no, I was, see that picture? That was me right there. Like posed. Like
sticker, the vote sticker, I was there.
That was me posed up. Like, and every time there is an election, I always bring my son just to like show him you have a voice, use it.
Yeah. And I think that brings up such a good point that like, and I guess I think it's kind of getting at what it feels like I'm tripping over words, but like some women have not been raised the same way that you and I have been, or don't recognize it. So rather than working backwards and trying to lecture them and change their minds, let's keep moving forward. So you taking your son and teaching him, this is important. You have a voice. This is how you're going to use it. And teaching him all those other good values that you have. By us working in the women's centers and not being afraid to talk about these things and say that, okay, yes, today's Women's Equality Day, but like, what does that actually mean? And where are we with that? And maybe introducing people to new ideas that they haven't been exposed to. I think that's where I feel like my energy and effort is going to be the most useful. Talking with people that are ready to listen, thinking about things, and maybe on the verge of questioning whatever they've been taught, and trying to go in that direction. Because it's frustrating to try to tell someone who's not listening to me that, you're wrong. You can have a better life than what you're living. So I think I love that you said that about your son. That feels like really inspiring, and like that's where, if we truly want equality, we got to just keep moving forward and like remember the history, and like you said, like point out that like literally two people that I know and like love and talk with like weren't allowed to do this, and know that to kind of help us with like progressing and moving forward and trying to actually achieve that equality that some people think we already have, even though clearly through the things that you've been sharing and we've been talking about, we're not there yet.
I do feel like also as women, we should uplift each other a lot more than we do. Like, I am not here to tear you down. I am here to congratulate you, and I am here to celebrate you. And I feel like a lot of times we get caught up in like, she said this about me, and it doesn't matter. It's like, as a woman, I'm here to say, if you need help, I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
Or if you need a shoulder, I have two. So, I mean, especially for Women's Equality Day, like we are already at a disadvantage. So why would we further disadvantage each other? I just feel like it's not necessary and it's counterproductive, and we would never get anywhere. And like, we're starting to get somewhere with the protesting and the speaking out and the letting our voice be heard. But then I know some people say like, you're not listening to me. I've been shouting this 75 times and you're not listening. But what if on that 76th time, they're like, you know what? I hear you.
Yeah.
So like in the fight, you can't give up. You can't, I know it gets tiresome, but that's what the fight is for, to keep going, to keep persevering, and to take someone with you along the way.
Yeah. I think you're like seizing those moments. Like you said, we're moving, and I think like the patriarchy, they want us to fight each other, to say, they want white women to feel as though they should get rights before women of color get their rights. No, we can all do it at the same time. We can all work together, and that's going to work better for everybody. But it works better for the patriarchy if we fight each other. So I'm all about fighting the white patriarchy and keeping them in the back of my mind whenever I'm making a decision. And I think a huge part of that is uplifting women and keeping them, pulling them along. I love that you said that. Like, here's my hand if you want it. If you don't want it, I'll go to the next one. Okay. But like, I'm here. And when you're ready to hear it, or when you're ready to walk alongside me, like, we've already started paving the way. So come on in. Maybe it took you a little bit longer. That's okay. Let's go. We still got stuff to do.
The point is, it's never too late. It's never too late to ask for help. It's never too late to fight for justice. It's never too late to extend a hand. It's never too late to say I was wrong. It's never too late to right or wrong. It's never too late to dismantle things that have been in place since the start of America.
Right, exactly.
So like, I feel like, and like, as of right now, I feel like we definitely have gained momentum in dismantling these things, but I feel like we still have a long way to go.
Right.
Like, this is definitely like a marathon. It's definitely not like a sprint. It's something that's going to take I may not see it in my lifetime, but I'm pretty sure my son will see it in his.
Right.
And that's all that matters to me. Is like, I just want change, and I want it effective.
Right. And I think while we want to have the big picture in mind, oh my God, my cat is like chewing all this paper and making so much noise. She doesn't care that we're trying to have a discussion. I think like we want the big change. We want equality, period. But being able to celebrate the little wins along the way and like using those as momentum, I think that's what can help keep us afloat too and keep fighting. It's like, okay, you know, with the women's soccer team, for instance, okay, let's hope that eventually they're getting paid what the men are. Let's take that win and like get excited about that, and then keep going to the next one. Even though I don't play for that team, I'm going to celebrate that they fought for that and they got it. And it says something about where our culture as a whole is moving. So I'm going to take it and let's keep going, because clearly there's movement. So let's follow that, ride their coattails a little bit. So maybe in a year, on Women's Equality Day next year, maybe we'll have more updates of like, look what happened.
We should definitely come back next year and like, did you see anything different? What did you notice? Right. What did you not notice? Like, how do you feel the country is going now? What direction do you think it's going in? Right. I really wish we were on campus, so I really want to do like a voter registration day. But
here we are.
Corona.
But they're still happening. They're still happening other places. Like I went to a farmer's market the other weekend and they have a stand. So they're out there. So I bet maybe we should look up where some of these places are, like, because I would imagine they're publicizing it and like looking like close to our campuses, because we're not that far away from each other. Maybe we should look and then share those locations with like on social media and then with students as well. And we still got time. Because
I know a lot of our students are just now being able to vote.
True.
Like, they're out of high school, they're first coming into a college setting, and they don't understand what's going on because they've never been in, like, I guess, experienced or privy to knowing what it means to vote. And so most of them don't do it at all, or just go along with their parents, like, have voted and just do that. But I do feel like something needs to be done just to show these kids, like, hey, you have a voice. You should be able to go and use it, because it's one of those, you know, use it or lose it. And it's
an overwhelming process if you haven't done it before, or even if you have. I mean, this is another whole discussion of, like, you know, people, what's the word I'm trying to say? I don't know, people making it difficult for others to vote. I can't think of the word.
Voter suppression, like that?
Yes, yeah. I was like, I know there's a phrase that we use for that. So that's a whole other topic. But, you know, so if we, like, anyone who's watching, and I'll post this on our page, and I think you can just do the same thing.
I think you have to send it to me, and then I'll post it.
I'll do that. So if you're watching this now or later, like, reach out to us and we can help you figure out what county do I live in? What do I have to do to register to vote? Here's the cat now. No, she wants to be a part of this. too much. But so I think I like that idea of revisiting this in a year, but I think we should keep doing virtual or collaborative virtual stuff like this.
Absolutely.
We're getting different different perspectives and bringing in different students. So I think, so happy Women's Equality Day to everybody. Let's keep fighting for it so that we have more than we did before. In the next month and the next year, let's keep going. And for the things where we have reached equality or at least gotten some rights, let's exercise them and do our part to uplift women all around the country and the world.
I definitely think for like next month, because it is Hispanic Heritage, like maybe bring in some students who maybe this is their first time voting, or maybe their parents weren't allowed to vote because they were immigrants, or now they can vote because they are a citizen, how they feel about it. I think that'll be really good.
Let's do that.
I like that a lot.
We'll make that work. Maybe we'll do it on WebEx so we can have people. It won't just be you and I talking.
Yeah, I like that a lot, for other people to give their experiences on what they're going through, and if they are choosing to vote, why, and if not, why. Because I definitely want to hear different perspectives outside of my own culture and like beliefs. Like I definitely want to do that. I think that'll be great, especially since the election for president is coming up in a matter of 3 months.
Yep.
That is really
almost
good.
Exactly.
And it gives the students a chance to be heard and give their opinions. And like you said, not just us talking and they're like listening.
I mean, we love talking, but we'll let we listen too. We're good listeners. So, okay, whoever's watching this, keep an eye out for the next one. If you want to join us and talk about whether you're Hispanic or not, keep in touch with us. Let us know what your thoughts are about what we've talked about today. If you have other things that maybe you would like for us to start conversations on, whether through Instagram Live or WebEx, keep in touch with us because we are here to serve you. And whatever it is that you're looking for, let us know how we can help and support you through that. So I think we'll wrap up today. Thanks for hanging on with us. Thanks for doing our first collaborative effort, Brittney. I think this is fun. And everyone who worked in our positions before, they missed out on doing something cool.
They did. I loved it. And don't forget to vote.
Yes.
Whether you're blue or red, vote.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.